Hey everyone. So, this was asked of me by one of our patrons, Ash, who's also a member of the channel. Love you for that. And someone I hang out pretty often with in the server. We hang out with people in our server. I want to talk about attention and the demonization of such. There's this language that gets thrown around a lot by lots of people. Transphobic parents, incredibly dumb conservatives, fill in the blanks. And the arguments always go like this. You're not that disabled, you're just doing it for attention. You're not really non-binary, you're just doing it for attention. You're not really trans, you're just doing it for attention. And so I could argue right now that that entire line of thinking is brain detonatingly stupid. It is a tap water temperature IQ statement. It is so fundamentally misunderstanding that I don't even know if I should, because it seems really obvious to me. And there's other people who've made that argument, so I'm going to come at it from a different level. So what? So what if I'm doing it for attention? What's wrong with attention? In Contra's video, Envy, at the very beginning, she was talking about why envy was something to avoid. The evil eye was something to avoid. You didn't want to bring a lot of attention to yourself, or it could bring the evil eye upon you. We don't live in that world anymore. And while envy is an absolute problem, as it leads to contempt and basically political stagnancy, the simple fact is that we still live in a world where we want to stand out. How many generations of human beings have existed with no attention given to them? They are just a name that passes through history, dies, and moves on after their children. Only known because of their bloodline. We don't live in that age anymore. We live in an age where literally 30 people right now are watching this stream because they want to, and they want to engage with us. They give a shit what we think for some fucking reason. What is wrong with attention? I want to attack this idea at the source. Yes, a variation of attention is part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
The sort of line of thinking that I wanted to get into, yeah.
So I will turn it over to my co-host. Zena, what are your thoughts on this? Because you and I have had this discussion a lot.
Attention is needed. Humans are social creatures. Like, spoiler, we need each other. We need to be noticed. We need to feel heard or feel connected. And demonizing attention just shuts all of that down. And there's also a perspective, too, where, like, no, attention, like, is communication, right? Like, this is definitely that. When we look at kids having a tantrum, no, there's things going on there, needs not being met, and they need something. Okay? And if you're just going to yell at your kid for having a tantrum, well, you're probably missing the fact that something is off. This is a small being that is still learning, what signals, what hungry feels like, all right? What being tired feels like. It's absolutely silly that, no, we don't actually, like, address that.
Oh, Mordecai, thank you so much for the $5.
Thanks. And same thing, when we're in adulthood, calling attention to something, some need in us, isn't bad. It's just fine. It is, attention means that, oh hey, our focus is there right now. And with things of identity, learning new stuff about ourselves, learning new stuff about the world around us, no, that attention is still good. It still helps. So that's what I've got.
Yeah, so I'll even take this into psychology for funsies.
Yeah.
Let's talk attachment theory. I've talked about that on this channel before when I was making fun of Kennedy from MTV. You know, the one that became a dumbass libertarian? The simple fact is that attachment theory, not attachment parenting, that's another fucking thing. attachment theory is pretty well validated, and it's something used even for things like emotional focus therapy, which I am trained in. So the simple fact is that when we're talking about this, attention to your child should be good, loving, and consistent. Otherwise, you get problems. Ignoring your kid, like when they did that whole thing in the 90s of like, just let them cry it out, leads to a lot of avoidant attachment kids. It's not good. Being inconsistent with your child, such as being really up in their grill and then later just not really being near them, leads to an anxious attachment. And if you're just a fucking monster, lashing out, swinging throws, shaking, all that awful fucking shit, your kid now gets confused messages and becomes disorganized. You're both the thing that's going to hurt them and the place they go for support. That fucks with a person. Good, wholesome, meaningful attention is literally built into human beings as a means by which to allow us to grow. We are social creatures and we learn how to connect and relate in this way. A really good example of this is that there is some evidence that attachment styles make their way into adulthood in various ways. This is emotional focus therapy's argument. And in emotional focus therapy, we look at those styles and we address them directly. And we look at what we call the pursuer-withdrawer dynamic. Well, why does that happen? Well, if you're a kid that's constantly ever trying to get the care from your parents you want, you become a pursuer. And if you're a kid that either doesn't want the attention or the attention isn't good, you become a withdrawer. Now, when you enter relationships, you play out those patterns. Remember in Gestalt, we talked about figures. Same thing. So I need you to understand this. Attention is something that is core to human need. It is something necessary for the development of people. Now, not all attention is good. There can be the attention of the state, often not good. There can be the attention of people that want to do us harm, especially in childhood. I'm not saying all attention is good, nor do I think sustained attention is guaranteed. But if you're in a relationship, giving some attention to your partner is a big deal. That's something Zena and I work out pretty okay. When one of us needs care and support, what we do is we put down what we're doing and we make that point. And if we can't put down things, we make a time to do so. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, touch starve? What was it, that you need like 4 hugs a day or some shit? Like,
yeah,
the reality is being touch starved has some very real effects. And actually, like, I was trying to find the old study, but there was something, if I remember correctly, that happened, I want to say it was years ago. There was an old study, if someone can remind me what that study is, but it was basically a bunch of abandoned infants or orphaned infants were taken care of, but because they didn't have any solid attachment figures, it actually led to really bad survival rates. Like, connection is necessary, people.
Well, and especially on things that are, like, integral to our sense of self, right? Like, those are things that we really need attention for.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. Like, that's just a regular old need that, we gotta work on.
Absolutely.
Also, I really hate seeing this with, like, ADHD folks. Like, you're just doing it for attention. Like, no, there's very real things. I see this with migraine people a lot, too. You're just doing it for attention. And there's always this misunderstanding where, like, the other person doesn't really understand what's happening because they're not going through it. And it sucks. And then there's, like, this whole lot of projection because of, like, well, I can function. Why can't you? Well, no, that's because brains are different and complicated. They are. They're way more complicated than what we want to admit.
Yeah, and here's the big problem is that if a kid doesn't get the right kind of support, the right kind of attention, and that attention either comes in the form of neglect, thus an absence of such, or it comes in the form of abuse, what we get into is some real changes to the way the morphology of the brain looks. Morphology alterations in the anterior cingulate. This is what I'm looking at for those playing the home game. Real quick. Boop, boop, and boop. What the fuck? Oh, it's turned off. That's why. Oop, there we go. Right? In the anterior cingulate, the dorsal, lateral, prefrontal, and the orbital frontal cortex, as well as in brain areas that transmit visceral feelings and emotions that accompany and define terror. More specifically, maltreatment targets brain regions and pathways that process and convey the aversive experience. Right? So we get into this thing as like literally people who have been abused or neglected are interacting with the world with a different fucking nervous system. A recent meta-analysis of 38 reports with quality data from 96 countries on past year's prevalence of violence against children showed that a minimum of 50% or more of those children in Asia, Africa, and North America experienced past year violence, and that globally over half of all children, 1 billion children from 2 to 17, experience such violence. Research has consistently shown that child maltreatment alters brain systems devoted to appraisal of risk and safety, resulting in difficulties regulating biological homeostasis and emotional response throughout life. However, despite the numerous studies over the past 30 years that have clarified the devastating effects of child maltreatment on mental and physical health, the role of trauma within the caregiving system remains unrecognized both by our diagnostic systems and in dominant treatment paradigms. This is also true culturally. We talk about this. This is literally what this video is about. Spoiler. We're talking about the simple fact, the idea of when you neglect a kid, when you do this shit, it negatively affects them. And the problem is that when we're talking about this thing about attention, when we say this shit on Twitter, or we say this shit in other situations, guess what? You not only say that in front of adults, you say that in front of children, people on Twitter. If that kid's over 13, they can be on Twitter. And guess what? You say that to a kid. They see this. They understand this. You say this kind of shit in front of your kid. Spoiler. People pick this shit up and they learn culturally that attention is bad. You're not supposed to bring attention to yourself because attention is always framed as bad. This is why people don't own their successes, because that's a form of attention. It's why kids, when they really want attention and they're starving for it, they misbehave. That's what a fucking temper tantrum is. It's a meltdown because a kid's needs not being fucking met, for the love of God. Do you guys get this? Like, this entire meme. Yes, there are times where some people want attention in negative ways, and we do need to make sure we're clear with those folks that that's not okay. But we can't keep demonizing attention. Let's see. Histories of parental abuse and neglect have consistently been associated with problems with concentration, anger, panic, depression, food intake, drugs, and sleep, as well as decreased heart rate variability, which is important. The higher your variability is, the better. Higher levels of stress hormones, and reduced or impaired immune functioning. Holy shit, Vanderkook's on there. As they point out, childhood maltreatment exerts a prepotent influence on brain development and has been an unrecognized confound in almost all psychiatric neuroimaging studies. Like, think about this. We demonize attention at every level of our fucking culture. We do this on Twitter, like, all the time. Oh, you're just looking for attention. You're just non-biracial. So the fuck what? Bye, Mordecai. See you later. Thank you so much again for the donation. But yeah, like, guys, understand this. This is insanity. Why is attention bad? Someone explain it to me.
Also, what if we just, like, switched all of this and just gave people positive attention? Like, oh god, if somebody's looking for attention, cool. Spare the 5 seconds to give them a compliment. Like, what the fuck, people? Like, that's not hard.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, we could actually say that conservatism is actually sort of a reaction to lack of attention, right? The whole point of being a conservative is to not stand out, to basically be part of the norm. Cis, white, het, probably male. If you're not part of that, then guess what? You're part of a marginalized class, but we don't want to hear from you. So if you're poor, if you're black, if you're trans, if you're anyone who's getting fucked by the basics of the system, they don't want to hear about it. Because the simple fact being disabled as well, Emily, catch you before you get back in here. The simple fact is that They don't want to hear from you. You're just asking for attention. You're just begging for handouts. You're just welfare queens. But look what MAGA is. MAGA is, by its definition, literally a desire for attention. Look at us. We're so cool. We follow Trump. We're going to do all what we want. Look at all the flags. It's literally just an attempt to be loud as shit. It's just like a cult wandering around the bullhorn. This is, again, part of the inherent fucking consistent contradictions within that mindset. Because by definition, what it does is it sets up a problem, a very real problem. And that is, they don't want you to have attention if you're a marginalized group, but they absolutely don't have a problem with you getting attention when you're just yelling about shit. Yeah, neurodiverse people as well. Like, you guys have to understand this, right? Like, this is not like an easy fucking thing to just blow off. When we talk about attention, we need to talk about good variations of attention. What does attention look like? Thank you, by the way, Alicia. Thank you so much for the $7.77. That's amazing. Thank you. We need to talk about what good attention is and what bad attention is.
I think the other thing, too, that Jess and I have been talking more about is kind of looking at this from, like, systems, okay? When we're looking at how to deal with this stuff, we can look at it from person to person. So just me and Jess, just us together. We could look at it from the framing of everybody in our house, dog included in there. If you want to talk about beings that need attention, it's them. We can also look at this on a much larger scale, okay? When we're looking at, like, people who are public figures of any kind or content creators of any kind. Politicians. We can look at this from a couple different lenses. So, did you want to kind of go off that a little bit?
Repeat part of that because I was trying to fix an issue. Unfortunately, Alicia's super chat didn't pop up on screen until I clicked it because of an issue I had on there because I hadn't fixed super chats.
Got it.
Say your thing again. I apologize.
Looking at this from different lenses or different, spectrums. We got the system of you and me. We've got a system of, like, a household, or looking at this from, like, the an audience with a public figure, streamers or YouTubers. There's a kind of a whole spectrum of ways to kind of view this topic from. And so I think it's important to kind of be able to look at, like, okay, how is attention working between Jess and I, right? How is it working in just me? Or, checking in with different people in my house, okay? Versus, also, we see this with YouTubers. The MAGA people have looking at, them versus a public figure versus other groups, and yeah.
Yeah, and this is the thing we have to understand is that, like, I'm not just bagging on conservatives, though I do love doing it. But understand that this is a thing, and I think in our community, and I think outside of it, I think people need to stop demonizing attention. If someone's trying to get attention in ways that aren't necessarily the most helpful, my best recommendation would be is that I think talking to that person and figuring out, again, if they're an adult, figuring out what is going to call to them, what is going to meaningfully engage with them. How can we get them to hear us out? And if the person is asking for attention and it's within your power to do so and doesn't cost a lot of energy, do it. Help them out. This is doubly true for children. I'll make a really, really spicy take. Everything a kid does before age 10 probably is a result of needs. It's just needs. And if you're not addressing those, the kid is going to find some way to get those needs met. Absolutely. One can make an argument that all these motherfuckers who are incels, all these motherfuckers who are, like, conservative trolls that go around hating on trans people, how many have we found of these people that eventually turn out to be trans? How many of these people do we find that are individuals who are just so touch-starved that they've become toxic? I'm not saying you have to give attention to those people, but what I'm saying is this is not just a online issue. This is not just a liberal, leftist, conservative issue. This is a human issue. Niana, abso-fucking-lutely.
You can't spoil the child before 3, yeah.
And Zoe, I'm so sorry to hear that. Being a trans woman, ace flux and plural, and for those specific reasons, people disreport any part I have online. And the thing I would say that this is, and this is going to be a spicy take, Zoe reminds me I was going to talk about this at some point. Fuck idpol. Seriously, fuck idpol. The simple fact of the matter is that your attention to me should be based on the quality of my data and my arguments, the quality of Zena's arguments and data. It shouldn't be based on me being a trans woman, even if I'm talking about trans issues. My experiences are valid if we're talking about experiences. But if we're just talking about trans people, to just give a blanket decision that trans people should have a cover and be always right about this is how we get Blair White. This is how we get Rose of Dawn. Rather, if someone brings up points, look at the points. Look at the argument. I don't care what their identity is. Say for Nazis, they're always disingenuous and lie. But generally speaking, I don't care whether you're plural. I don't care whether you're fucking trans. I don't care if you're non-binary or binary trans. I don't give a fuck what you are. As long as you're not harming anybody else, I don't give a fuck about that stuff. I want good arguments. I want people to put those forth, and who they are doesn't really wholly matter except for in very specific cases. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I think that's all I've got on this. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, everybody wants to feel seen and feel heard.
Yep.
Everybody needs that. And the best we can, I think, do that for people. Do that for your people in your community and people in your house.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can also ring the bell if you want to be notified of our videos. If you want to help the channel, you can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip. You also can become a patron at patreon.com/transgirltherapist. For as low as $3, you can support our channel. Thanks for watching.